All right, everybody. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We're here at the Mon County Center in Milan Park, and we're here to, we have an update, a stakeholders meeting regarding our county broadband project. Before we get started, I wanted to do a little housekeeping. For those of you that are watching via YouTube, if you have a question, if you just want, I'm going to take this off while I'm talking. If you have a question, if you just want to send it to monfiber, Q&A, spell out and, at gmail.com. Once again, if you have any questions, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you just send it to monfiber, Q&A, at gmail.com, and we will get the question. Anybody here in the audience, if you have a question, there's cards up there. Just write your question down, raise your hand, and Mike will get it from you, and we'll take your question one at a time. So anyhow, to get started, my name is Sean Sikora. I'm a Monongalia County Commissioner. I'd like to welcome our Commission President, Tom Bloom. He's here in the crowd. Thanks, Tom, for coming out, and thank you and Jeff for delegating me with heading up this project. It's been an interesting couple years as we've started to work on how we're going to connect every corner of our county. And we'll go through what we've done so far with our project team, but it's been an interesting ride, and I'm really happy to be representing the commission in that capacity. We have a number of individuals that have been helping us, a lot of county employees. We have Mecca 911, Mike Fortney has been delegated to our group, and he's done a lot of work outside in the community. We have our county ITT staff, Jeff Welsh, our IT directors here. We've had our county planner, Andrew Gaspray, Bill Austin, the MMPO director, Delegate Statler, Ron Lytle from the school board. And I hate to start naming people because I know I'm going to miss somebody, but we have a really, really good functional team that has been working all through this process. We also have our citizen representative, David Shrewsbury, a concerned citizen who contacted me a couple months, maybe a year ago, and we started having a conversation about his troubles, where he was having trouble in the eastern end of the county. And David's been a wonderful addition to our group. So anyhow, let me introduce a few people and get out of the way. Here we have from Congressman David McKinley's office, we have Wendy Madden. She's a field rep for Congressman McKinley, and she wants to get up and say a few words on his behalf. Wendy?
All right. Congressman extends his wishes to everyone tonight. Thank you for inviting me to be with you this evening, but unfortunately a very busy schedule during this district work week prevents me from being there. He thanks organizers, Lit Communities, Ice Miller, and DLZ for spearheading the event tonight, and sends these greetings. This announcement is welcome news to the many students, families, and businesses who need robust and reliable broadband connectivity to carry out their work, their education, healthcare, and entertainment. I was fortunate to sit down with Mon County commissioners and learn firsthand the positive impact this project will have right here and eventually across the state. Thank you to the local leaders and organizers who were willing to come together to create a plan that takes advantage of the unprecedented money coming into our state to fix our roads, bridges, to provide safe drinking water, and provide internet connectivity. This project is a prime example of how this investment in infrastructure is intended to serve the people. You're doing great work here. I look forward to learning more about this project and the future projects that will build on its success.
Thank you, Wendy. And then we have a couple guests that are virtual. Via Zoom, we have Delegate Statler, who's busy at work in Charleston working on our behalf, but Joe's participating, and he asked for a couple minutes to address us. Delegate Statler? What's that? Put the microphone on in front of the speaker. Delegate Statler, if you could, you're on mute.
Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Well, I will tell you, I'm en route between some meetings, and so I can hear you and might lose you every once in a while. But I'm certainly appreciative of all the work that's being done in Monongalia County. And as far as I know, it's not being done anywhere else across the state right now. And I appreciate being able to send legislation to you and to the consultants as we're taking it up down here, because you guys know how much I know about technology, and it's not enough to come in out of the rainstorm. So I appreciate all that help that you give us, and and I would say one thing to you, that when that bill came back up, the committee chair told me today that you was the only ones to give any feedback or any comment on it. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Delegate Statler. We appreciate all you're doing for us in Charleston. And what the bill that Delegate Statler's talking about is HB 4001, that's currently working its way through the committees, and it has some really good. So far, we've looked at it, and it has some really good things from Mon County. The actual state's doing a lot of things that we've been suggesting all along as we've been through the early stages of our project. So it could bode very well for this county, and we appreciate everything that Delegate Statler's doing for that. Next, we have a message from U.S. Senator Joe Manchin.
Hello, I'm United States Senator Joe Manchin. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak with all of you this evening about the importance of broadband access in the 21st century. And a special thank you to the organizers of this evening's event, Lit Communities, Ice Miller LLP, and DLZ. While the lack of accessible broadband across the United States has been an issue for many years, the COVID-19 pandemic has shone a light on the stark realities of the digital divide and how internet access is vital to keeping up in today's world. Right now, at least 258,000 West Virginians have no broadband access at all. In the 1930s, the federal government made a historic investment through the Rural Electrification Act to bring electricity to nearly every home and farm in America. Broadband today is just as important as electricity was then, and without efforts to bring connectivity to rural areas, they will continue to lag behind. We need the same approach and dedication from the federal government today, which is why I led the bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that will bring around $600 million to expand broadband access in West Virginia alone. I've worked for years to ensure every West Virginian and American has access to reliable broadband internet, but it's impossible to close the coverage gaps if we don't know where they exist. That's why I encouraged over 2,200 West Virginians to submit broadband speed tests to the FCC to prove their coverage maps are wrong. As a result of these efforts, the FCC has finally agreed to update these maps so areas of West Virginia and the entire country can finally apply for funding to expand broadband access to those who need it. That's why I fought to make sure that the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will be the first broadband funding based on the updated maps. It also includes my formula, which distributes funds based on each state's proportion of unserved areas, and a 10% set aside for additional assistance to states with higher cost of deployment, like West Virginia. And I fought to include $1 billion specifically for middle mile deployment to help efforts exactly like the one that we're discussing today. In addition, 543,000, or 31% of people in West Virginia, will be eligible for the Affordability Connectivity Benefit, which will help low-income families afford internet access. This is a once-in-a-generation investment into deploying broadband access across the state so every West Virginian has access to affordable, reliable broadband. Here in Mon County, you all are working tirelessly to bring broadband access to everyone, and I want to give a special shout-out to the many local champions who have put in the work to make this project come together. When communities come together, there's so much good that can be done, and we're seeing that right now. A specific thank you goes out to Monongalia County Commissioner Sean Sikora and the Monongalia County Commission, Morgantown Area Partnership Vice President Eric Carlson, Mecca 911 Emergency Planner Mike Fortney, and Monongalia County resident Drew Shrewsbury. Mon County's success can be an example for communities, not just across the state, but across the country. You'll hear more about this in the presentation, but the county's design for building out a middle mile network that could connect important county facilities like the municipal buildings and emergency services, and building a last mile network that can bring connectivity to all residents and businesses show their dedication to getting this right. Now is the time to act, and I look forward to seeing what we can accomplish together to bring broadband to every West Virginian, no matter where you may live. Thank you, and God bless each and every one of you.
I know we don't have any representatives of Senator Manchin's office here, but thank you for that message. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn you over to our team. I just want to, again, remind you, if you have any questions out there on YouTube, send those questions to monfiberqa@gmail.com. And if anybody has any questions in a room, feel free to write them down on a card and raise your hand, and Mike will come around and get them. So I'd like to first introduce Lindsay Miller from Ice Miller Whiteboard. She's going to take the presentation from here, and she'll also introduce the rest of her team. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pull this down for a little bit. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is some background on this. And for those of you who are wondering, this mic is for the people who are remote. That's why it doesn't sound like a microphone to you all. So I am not just up here talking into an off mic. So this project in total kind of kicked off almost a year ago at this point. So on February 3rd of 2021, the county issued an RFP looking for a consulting firm to develop a comprehensive broadband strategic plan and feasibility study. Moving forward, I'm just going to call it the strategic plan for broadband expansion throughout Mon County. A lot of communities are taking these approaches right now, but Mon County was really ahead of the curve in that it was ahead of IIJA. There was a lot of pre-planning that was done. They were very clear in the RFP in terms of what they were looking for. It was a very robust RFP, and we were thrilled to partner with Lit Communities in DLZ. We will all talk about our organizations more in a minute, to submit a response. We were even more thrilled to ultimately get selected through that RFP process, and we were notified of that in mid-May and began work shortly thereafter. So next slide, please. This is a total 9-month project scope. So we have been working on this for a while now. When we first proposed 9 months, we were thinking, I don't know, is that too long? Are we stretching this? And honestly, we probably could use more and more time because the involvement that we have seen locally is truly unprecedented to other communities in which we've worked. And we want to make sure all those efforts are brought into play. As you can see, the tasks that were ahead of us in that 9-month time frame were pretty substantial. So there were really 13, and then coalescing all of that into a broadband strategic plan, and delivering that plan and helping the county to ultimately implement it. So that plan is due February 19th. So we are very much coming up on that. And this is the third of what we are calling town hall meetings, to speak with everyone locally, get feedback, and share where we are in the plan development. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to answering any of your questions. Next slide. No problem. Well, while we were it's actually perfect timing. There we go. It actually would not be a presentation on broadband if there wasn't a broadband issue. It's just how this happens. So a little bit about the project team. So as was referenced, I'm Lindsay Miller with Ice Miller Whiteboard. I'm joined by my colleague Chris Miller, also of Ice Miller Whiteboard. We're just going to go ahead and answer the question to save someone from writing it. We just have a common last name. There's no connection between us or between the Miller in Ice Miller and our Millers. And there's, for some, they're all thinking it. Everyone's thinking it. Everyone always asks me. So Ice Miller Whiteboard is a consulting arm of a law firm, actually. Chris and I are based in the Columbus, Ohio office. But our broadband and telecommunications team is comprised of attorneys and non-attorneys, collectively with over a century of experience working on broadband projects. Oftentimes we are in a situation of advising different units of government, as we are here. And we currently work across 8 different states. So while we are in Columbus, we work in a lot of different geographies. In doing so, we work in urban, rural, Appalachian, suburban areas, and we try to provide advisement in terms of broadband development for public-private partnerships, for long-term economic development, and basically community sustainability. So one line that we always say is that broadband itself is not field of dreams. It's not if you build it, they will come. But what we do know, and what we've especially seen during COVID, is that if you don't, they will leave. Maybe not in the current generation, but in future generations. So getting sufficient connectivity is not only a matter of attracting new businesses and residents to an area, but retaining those entities and keeping them locally. And to do so, we look at incorporating fiber and wireless deployments into the plans that we create. And that's the same approach that was taken here. Next slide, please. So here is our team. As you can see, there is a third Miller involved on it. Chris and I are obviously in person here, but the rest of the folks are in Columbus and have been a huge help. Our team is comprised of, as I said, folks who work on broadband all day, every day, like myself. We also have our economic development director. We have public finance and public-private partnership advisors. So we try to bring well-rounded solutions to the communities in which we work. Next slide. So specifically in this project, and I'm trying to go quickly through this because this is frankly not why you're here, but I have to tell you who we are. In this project, we were tasked with project management. So we serve as the lead for this study, and we conducted the comprehensive infrastructure inventorying, looking at publicly available data. We'll talk about that in a minute, so such as the FCC Form 477, et cetera, as well as private data sets to which we have subscriptions. We led several community stakeholder meetings similar to this one, outreach to internet service providers, et cetera. Looking basically at broadband coverage today. What do we see? Where are the gaps and where are opportunities to fill them? And then what are ways that those can be funded? Historically, the funding section of a study like this was usually the quickest to write pre-COVID because the grants were there, we knew what they were, they would cycle back around, and then COVID hit and the funding section became the most challenging to write because it has changed so dramatically in a brief period of time, and all of that will be encompassed in the plan. So that is an overview of Ice Miller. I'm actually going to pass this to Jessica Fowler with Lit Communities to introduce them, and then we will go over what we have seen so far in the plan.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm going to be super quick because I, too, like Lindsay, want to get to the most important piece of this, which is all the good work that we did for the past 9 months. And frankly, like Lindsay said, we wish that we had more time. I definitely wish I had more time after I spent 6 hours with Mike Fortney driving around in a truck and understanding what this county was all about. I definitely need more time here. But quickly, Lit Communities, we deploy last mile fiber optic network infrastructure. So in order to do that, we have a broadband consultancy firm, which is I am part of, which starts with communities from day one. So you want to build a network. So you want to get more connected. How can you do that? All the way through to detailed design, engineering, operations, construction, operations, and we will actually come in and be an ISP if that's what a community wants and provide that last mile fiber service. A lot of our team, we've grown from, I think it was 9 of us about a year ago to 56 of us. So we are a young company. We started out in 2019, and it's been a great ride ever since. We had a business plan that we thought was going to take 3 to 5 years, and then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, it was 18 months. So we've hit this at the right time, and we're really excited to be part of the communities that we're working in. We employ a lot of different people. We have engineers, we have GIS data science folks, construction teams, operations and management, folks like me who work with governments and do project management. We have a fantastic federal and state grant consulting expert who worked with Lindsay on this project. And we do a lot of strategic planning in terms of public financing and the capital stack aspect of all of this, which, as any of you who are involved in any projects know, that's one of the most important key pieces to all of this. And we have experience building public-private partnerships. We have a Medina Fiber in Medina, Ohio, which we just started lighting up people in September. And fingers crossed, next week we'll be making a public announcement about another market in Kentucky. Next slide. So that's me right up top. And then the person right here, Renee Gonzalez, he worked with Lindsay on grants. And Chris Kirkland, who you'll be hearing from tonight, he couldn't be with us. Darn that nasty COVID. But Chris helped with a preliminary mapping, and we have one other member of our team, Maria Gama, who's not pictured here, who also helped with the mapping. Next slide. So what did we do on this project? We worked on the preliminary design for the core, which is another name for a middle mile network, and the last mile network. I helped to manage the community survey along with a vendor that we use called Koos. They're a Swedish team. This is what they do: demand aggregation surveys in communities to see how the public feels about connectivity, what they see as the big challenges are, how do they feel about the local providers, creation of financial models, assisting Ice Miller in creating a list of the federal funding opportunities. And I think Lindsay hit the nail on the head when she said it's just a landscape that was constantly changing as we go. But Lindsay, I think in a good way. And providing recommendations on next steps that the county can take to go into phase 2 for all the good work that they've done so far and that this whole team has done. And I think that's it. And Mark, you're next.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Kessinger with DLZ out of Columbus, Ohio. I am vice president there, and I'm a lifelong resident of West Virginia. Grew up in the coal fields down in Williamson and attended WVU for my engineering degree, and I've been living in Huntington since graduation. And I can echo Delegate Statler's comments. The county, your county, is ahead of the curve. You're the point of the spear for broadband deployment in West Virginia. I'm in Cabell County. They're about a year behind trying to get where you are, and so is Kanawha. So hats off to everyone that's been involved in that. I think your commissioners are going to be very busy sharing what they've learned with other county commissions as the state moves forward. So everyone that's been involved, please take our sincere thanks for what you've done so far. We're a family and minority-owned engineering and architectural firm. So what do we have to do with broadband? Well, we look at the infrastructure, what you have in place, what would need to be added additionally. We actually plan to do a lot of GIS work on the project, but Mike and the county has done such a great job. We've basically taken the information they've already assembled and identified it, placed it on mapping, and you'll see some of those exhibits tonight. So again, thanks for having us. I'm really excited about the project as a West Virginian, and I know you are too, so thank you.
Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's get into this. So first and foremost, what we looked at is household access. And as I shared, we looked at a variety of different data sets to do that. Why do we look at different data sets? As was referenced in Senator Manchin's comments, because broadband data historically has been very flawed, and that's widely known. I didn't just spill a secret here about it. And so as a result, what we do is we look at as much data as we can to overlay it and make sure we're getting a true picture of what's going on in an area. So this is an example of what we were seeing in terms of service speeds that were available in and around the county. This is predominantly from the FCC Form 477 data, which is a data submission that they collect biannually. So what this showed is that about 18,500, we'll round up just slightly, in the county were unserved by broadband, which is defined as 25 megabits per second down, 3 megabits per second up. However, with the IIJA and other federal action, that is basically becoming now a definition of 100 megabits per second down, 20 megabits per second up. So you can assume that that number is then higher using that speed tier. On the flip side, we showed that there were approximately 25,000 folks served by 25.3 or higher. So that's what we see, over half essentially. Next slide. When we would look into access types available around the county, I would say close to majority was through cable, so around 21,000 connections. However, a good amount were still through digital subscriber line, or DSL service, which was one of the early kind of broadband mediums, so to speak, nearly a little over 20,000. And then if you see the slivers down here, there's a significant lesser amount served by fiber, and then also by fixed wireless. And so we identified early on that there are existing, obviously, service options locally, which is great. There is maybe a need from a competition standpoint for additional options. And then looking further into that fiber specifically, what can we do to see what exists in terms of not only last mile service, so the connectivity to a house or to a business or to an institution, but also the middle mile, or as Jessica said, that core network that basically connects the network that serves the end user. Next slide. This, unfortunately, is going to be very hard for the folks in the room to see, which we found out when we did this earlier. But folks online, hopefully you have a great view on this. But basically what this then did is we took the census tracts using other data that was available. So FCC Form 477 data is collected by census block. The American Community Survey and others collect by tract, which again shows why you have to overlay different data. It's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. But looking at all the tracts across the county, what we ended up seeing was that the median download speeds and the median upload speeds across those tracks were basically all below that 25 megabits per second download threshold. Again, this is median. It doesn't mean everyone's getting that experience, but that was very telling to kind of peel away the layers of the onion of what experience has been like locally. Next slide. So then, as I said, we wanted to look at where infrastructure currently exists. Jessica spent many hours in a car looking at infrastructure. Some of us, like myself, were pretty much behind the computer doing a lot of this analysis. As I am not an engineer, I am an attorney, and I should not be doing that part of the analysis. So from a data standpoint, though, looking at what fiber is available, this is a depiction of what we call metro fiber, so to speak, but essentially like a middle mile fiber in and around the county. And you can see there's a good amount, relatively speaking, but it's all kind of concentrated in and around the same area. And as was said earlier in Sean's initial comments, you know, the goal here really is a county-wide look at broadband. And so how do we get other areas of the county to reflect a similar experience? So with that, we started to actually survey folks and then again, peel away the onion a bit more and see what local service experience is actually like. And I'm going to pass the mic to Jessica to go over those results. And next slide, please.
And if you enter your email address on the sign-in sheet, we will email you this presentation from the Monfiber Q&A email address.
Great, thank you. So the survey, here we go. So the survey opened in July, and we were told before we started our work on the survey, you will get a lot of responses because, as Sean shared with us, Mon County did very well with its did pretty well with its census data survey. So we did get some good returns on this. Right now, we're at 1,800 folks having responded to the survey. So that makes us pretty confident. Actually, it gives us statistical confidence that all of the results that I'm going to share with you tonight are pretty much spot on. So how was this advertised? Inserts and tax tickets. That was a big one, and that was something that I think Sean, somebody from your office, came up with that great idea. Yep, it was a wonderful idea, and it really got people driving right into the site and responding at a very good clip for quite a while. Social media blasts, Mon County had it on their website, and we also did a press release. Again, strong response, over 1,800 surveys completed. The survey is still open and will be open until mid-February. So we're hoping after this town hall, we'll get even more of a boost. So it would be great to get as many responses as possible. All of the responses I'm going to show you later on showed a very strong community interest in a municipally supported network. We divided the survey responses between Western, Central, and Eastern Mon County. As an executive summary, the western part of the county had really the highest need right now. That's what we really saw right there. And after driving in Western Mon, I can tell you, I completely see why. Strong dissatisfaction with current providers, speeds, and the pricing in all the areas. And comments, I can't read what I said here, but that's okay. There we go. Comments show concern regarding the ability to work and learn remotely in all areas. Of course, that's the comment you're going to see, especially over the last couple of years. Next slide. Okay, so who are these providers? Who is actually in Mon County? Well, surprise, surprise. Out of the respondents that we have, over 65% of them have Comcast cable. There's Viasat, Atlantic Broadband, West Virginia University, Clear Fiber, Westco, and Frontier. There was, I think, about 75% of the survey respondents actually that answered the survey have Comcast. Next slide. Okay, likeliness to sign up. So we asked everyone from the get-go, how likely would you be to sign up for another option if it were available in Mon County from what you currently have? And again, we divided it up between Central, Eastern, and Western. Positive, the number of people who would be likely to sign up, and that's, I would consider it likely yes, and yes definitely in Western Mon was 93%. Again, not surprised. Mon County Central at 81% and the Eastern at 86%. And what's interesting to me about those numbers is that these are folks that are pretty well served right now. So I think as I dug deeper into this and looked at all the data from COOS, I could tell, and I'll probably get to this slide, I think I included it, that a lot of the concern was really about pricing. There was some concern about reliability and service, but a lot of it was around pricing. Next slide, please. Has internet at home. Okay, so this was out of all the respondents, 83% who answered the survey, yes, they did have internet at home. 17% had nothing. So they were actually answering the survey probably from work, I'm guessing, or somewhere else. Internet access and speeds here. Advertised download speeds, all areas. I know you guys can't read this. It's less than 5 all the way up to more than 100 down. I think, yeah, this is down. So we had 31% of all survey respondents with more than 100 down. Not that great. Next slide. All right. Has internet at home? Yes, in Mon County Central, 86%. Yes, has internet at home in the eastern part, 85%. Yes, has internet at home, 76%. No, 24% in the western area. So again, there's a pretty big disparity here, and this theme just kept coming up. Next slide. Okay, so as Lindsay and I talked about, Lindsay mostly, but we've been talking about it quite a bit over the last 9 months. You know, the definition, the FCC definition was 25.3. Well, it's been changing since we started this project, so now it's 120. But I wanted to still show you this anyway. So 25.3, all areas. We have not meeting FCC broadband definition. These are all the areas that we surveyed. 29%, not even getting 25.3. It's just not sustainable. It is not going to work. And it doesn't have to work. I mean, after being here for, just the past 24, 36 hours and working on this project, there's so much opportunity that I think we can really work towards fixing this. And then again, this just breaks down not meeting the broadband definition from central to eastern to western. You've got 21, 20, and 66%. Next slide. Okay, this one's really going to be hard for you to read, but what I'd like to do is zone in actually on this box because I'm being mindful of our time. So what we did in the survey was we gave folks a speed test, and we actually asked them, what do you think you're getting? And then did the speed test and showed them what they were getting. So folks who said, I have a speed, I'm pretty sure it's advertised as 51 to 100, 18% of those were not getting that actual advertised speed. And here, that was for the central part. For the eastern part here, 51 to 100, that was 22%. So there was really a big disparity between what folks were paying for, what they thought they were getting, and what the speeds were when they actually took the test from their home. We made sure they were taking it from where they were reporting their data from. Next slide. Okay, selected service all areas. Okay, so this just goes back to how likely are you to sign up? Again, that positive number of 86% for the whole county. And this showed what kind of service people were interested in. So folks were interested in mostly this one, the 500, which in almost all the communities that we work with and do these surveys, this is the one that's the most common and that comes up the most that people want. Next slide. I'm just kind of move quickly through these because I know we got a lot to cover. County involvement. This is one of my favorites because to me, this really substantiated all the good work that Sean and his team has done. And the question, I'll read it for you, is how important is it to you that Mon County is working to bring better broadband to your community? Well, the blue right here is extremely important, and that's 81%. So even though you may not, when you look back at the survey data, you saw that some people seemed like, they were pretty okay. They may have some gripes, but still, those folks are part of this 81% too. They definitely think it's important for the county to address connectivity issues, if not for them, then at least for their neighbor. Next slide. What the residents are saying. This is always my favorite part. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be really going through a lot of these comments and starting to categorize them so we can really get a nice sense of how many of the comments are about pricing and how many might be about service, reliability, and other categories that I've been coming up with Lindsay. But what the residents are saying, and these were comments that respondents directly entered into the survey. We have been plagued with slow internet for decades, stuck with old copper wire at speeds barely able to stream with service interruptions from an outdated system. Fiber at this time is the way to go, the only way to go, and is really extremely needed in this county and in fact the whole state. That said it right there for me. Next one. Central Morgantown has pretty good service, but that changes very quickly for the rest of the county. So I have a feeling this was somebody from Central Morgantown that wrote this. Focusing efforts in other parts of the county would be ideal as they are most in need of it. Again, though through community reps like the library, not online initiatives. An emphasis on competition would be good. There are likely many people content with their service who don't realize that options will make the pricing and service of the companies more customer-oriented. There's a million more comments that I could have shared, but I didn't. But thank you. I'll be available later if you have any questions about the survey data, and there will be more information about the survey in the final report. I think we have Chris Kirkland. Okay, Chris Kirkland, my team member, is on the line. As I said, he couldn't join us, but he is going to go through the mapping that we did of the middle mile and of the last mile.
Good evening, everyone. Are you ready for me to walk through the mapping now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What we set out to do here is, as Jessica mentioned, you start with the outline of the county, and we start looking at anchor institutions throughout the county that the county representatives identified for us. So these could be first responders, these could be community sites like libraries, this could be economic development sites, or municipal sites like courthouses and voting stations. So using those anchor institutions, we started stitching together the mapping that you see here and the rings that make up this mapping. So this will be referred to as your core network or as your middle mile network. And we have these labeled not only with color, but also with a ring number. And we chose a redundant path for each one of these rings. And what this redundancy does is it makes the network more resilient. If a fiber cut happens to occur once the fiber is deployed, the network architecture being in a ring configuration allows the network to self-heal. And what that means is it redirects all the traffic along, just say ring 9 in the far western side of the county. If a cut was to occur, it would redirect all of that traffic around the other side of the ring into ring 11 and then continuing the traffic back to a data center location. So this is as I mentioned, the core network. This is the, maybe the best way to put it is the highway for the internet to get to your home. Next slide. This is the distribution network that core supports. So as we discuss the distribution network, we're also going to refer to this as last mile network. And this is the actual network from the core or from the middle mile that brings the internet to your home. This is what you're going to see strung along the poles. This is what you're going to see buried in the ground. This is what you're going to see the drops going to your home. So this goes, while the middle mile goes to anchor institutions and to strategic locations throughout the county, this network goes to every resident and every business throughout the county. This is also this network, and the middle mile network is also how we came up with the financial modeling and all of the details that go along with the end result of the community assessment. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, next steps and recommendations. So we spent a good deal of time over the past 9 months thinking about some of the most effective ways the county could take this project into another phase. And I can tell you with the utmost confidence that we're not done. The list that you're about to see, and go ahead, next slide, is not exhaustive at all. There are more things that will be added to it. So these options are not exclusive of one another. There's many things here that should be actually considered. There's many things on this list that should be considered to run in parallel with each other and be included with one another. Obviously, when we looked at the western part of Mon County, we thought somewhere in western Mon might be a good place to do a partial middle mile build and a fiber to the premise pilot project. So actually doing two things at once, thinking about taking the least connected part of the county, taking any county funding that they currently have, putting it into beginning a middle mile build throughout the county, starting in the western part, and do a fiber to the premise pilot project off of that middle mile piece. What it really would do, it would show the capabilities of the teams that are working. It would allow for scalability. It would definitely control the cost. We could start right away with something like that. That's small, that's achievable, it's attainable, and it gives the county and the team that would be working on this lessons learned. We could start with that and then expand out. Option 2, wireless build for an area in western Mon County. There's an opportunity in Mon County, especially in the western area, to consider doing wireless to many different areas of the western part. There's a lot of particular partners out there who have a lot of interest and already have some infrastructure available. So I think a really careful look at how to do wireless is definitely something that we would recommend. In terms of doing wireless for Mon County or for any part of the county, that's a propagation map, that's an assessment from a wireless engineering company. And then again, as I said, there are many different pieces of infrastructure out there that we want to be looking at and figuring out how to integrate into any kind of wireless network that we do out there. We don't feel like wireless is a solution for the long term, but it is a solution for the short term. And for this project, it absolutely cannot be ignored, especially when you look at the numbers of people who have nothing out there. Option 3, middle mile network for Mon County. I think looking at this county, looking at the data that we saw, and as we work through the financials, which are not finished at this point, we definitely see a attraction to the county being able to perhaps start with a middle mile build and go out to the whole western part, or the whole part of the county, western, eastern, and central. There's a lot of pluses for the county to consider when they think about owning a middle mile. There's the big part is that there's a substantial amount of revenue that the county can earn from owning part of that middle mile. It would also help to attract more last mile providers to the area. Option 4, continue to work on network design. That's a big one. And of course, that's something that should be done really right away in phase 2. So that's construction right out, make ready engineering assessments so we can really get in and start to refine the cost on the financial model, looking at the poles, looking at the ground, trying to make sure that what we've already figured out in our models really matches what's out there right now. And then continuing to look at some of the right-of-ways and easements that have been brought up for consideration in the project, looking and seeing how many of those might actually be able to be used and how they would actually be integrated into the project. Option 5, pursue future funding. That's a big one. So as Lindsay and I have both talked about already tonight, there's quite a bit of funding out there from the government side, from private philanthropy, as I'm learning today, from state monies, and there's also private equity that would be interested in this market. So it's really going to be a task over the next year or two of bringing stakeholders together in a group, financial partners together in a group, and figuring out how we can make something happen. So again, all of these options, they're not completely fleshed out yet, but this is the direction that we believe the county should consider going in.
Thank you. We're going to move into Q&A at this point, which are coming into me on my phone and then also in person. Feel free to continue to propose questions as they come up. Before we get into these, I do want to say, and believe me when I say I'm not at all speaking in hyperbole, we have never seen a community come together like we have in this project. As Jessica referenced, we have seen utility entities speak with us. We have seen members of the county dedicate their time and energy, but also their passion to this project in a way that usually we're kind of pulling along. So we just hats off to all of you for all the progress that's already been made, and thank you again for selecting us for this project. It's truly been a pleasure. Okay. First question, and Sean, we may have you answer some of these. There has been suggestions that the county should form a nonprofit to oversee and be the actual ISP to run broadband. How would you respond to this suggestion? I will take the first pass at this. Chris may want to chime in as well, and then certainly if the county wants to chime in. So in any discussion of a network locally, especially one that may be in total or in part overseen by a government entity, the nonprofit option usually comes into play. And what is really of utmost importance is going to be that that entity serving in that role, one, is able to receive the funds that are available, so are an eligible entity, so to speak, for grant funds and other dollars that are available. Two, legislatively or statutorily has the authority to perform that type of function. And then three is the type of entity that can really coalesce the needed partners for the delivery of that network solution. So certainly a nonprofit approach is one that can be taken. We have worked in communities that have opted to go that route. It's certainly not the only option though. And so as the county determines its different priorities, then it can better flesh out what the operation and management structure of that could be. But that certainly is an option. And what we did in part of our funding and financing assessment was to make recommendations in terms of the type of entity that we believe could serve in that role. And so those will be encompassed in the final report. They're currently under review by the county. So that would be my response. But Chris or Sean, if you have anything you'd like to add.
No, I mean, I don't have anything additional to add. I think Lindsay's right that, I mean, that is part, I know the question I think is there have been suggestion, right? So that is going to be something we look at, discuss, and it'll be part of that report. So at the end of the day, once all that report is reported out and comes in, we'll have to make a decision. I mean, you'll all have to make a decision sort of as a group as to what's going to happen. That is definitively one of the potential possibilities. And I think that it'll be up to the county and its leadership to make that decision. So we have and will consider that just as we will every other opportunity, whether that's public-private partnerships, whether that's government funding and doing it on, the county on its own. So there's a lot of different alternatives. And that's part of, I think, what we like to feel like we're bringing to the table here is to help you folks narrow down onto your solution and kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, as they say, from the part of the Midwest I'm from, and narrow it down. So I think that's what we're here to do, and those things will be part of the resultant product that you're going to see.
And again, the only other thing I would reference to is among the different models. So we also are looking at things like development authorities and different types of entities. In Ohio, we look at what under state law there are port authorities. So we're really trying to be exhaustive with that analysis. Sean, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you both have really kind of hit it on the head. We haven't decided anything. We've talked about, as we try to provide the middle mile architecture, having an entity that would help run that, but the county doesn't want to be an ISP. We just want to provide the tools so that we can get the ISPs to come into an open access network and compete. And we think that if we level the playing field as far as the middle mile network, then that will only bring in more competition. And honestly, as we have more competition, the service level and the prices will go down for our citizens. But we haven't decided anything. These are just all different options that we've been talking through. And then once we get the final report, we'll spend a lot of time having these conversations as far as how we're going to get to the end byproduct. So thank you.
Okay, I will do the next question. And then just a reminder, if you are remote, to submit questions to monfiberq, the word and a, @gmail.com. The next question, is there any consideration of working across the state, parentheses Greene County, to help the western end since they are developing their area? So short answer would be yes. As we have been working through the report, while certainly our client in this case is Mon County, there are cost efficiencies, time efficiencies, a lot of benefits of more regional approaches when you look at broadband solutions. So at a high level, that is something that we are considering and will be encompassed generally in the recommendations in the report. Please.
Sorry, I'll just stand up here.
It's okay.
No, we as a county, and I think a lot of people see this out in Monongalia County. We look at our region, and we don't always draw those county and state lines. We as a commission have been meeting with Greene County once a month for the past couple years. We've had discussions with them as far as what they're doing, and we've told them as we figure out what we're doing, we want to come together and see how we can work together. There's areas where they can bring the fiber to us, or we can work with them. Same thing as we were driving around today, and we really started seeing, how close we are to areas of. There's a lot of areas in Mon County that are, there's a lot of areas in Marion County that people think they're in Mon County. Again, we don't see those lines. We're willing to work together. We've talked about setting up a meeting with Preston County. We understand, we know what they're doing with their fiber provider, having those conversations, because there's areas of Cheat Lake that can be served by building off of what they're doing in Preston County. So we don't draw those lines, and we're kind of looking at everything.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to the remote questions now. So excuse me for looking at my phone momentarily. I'm going to summarize some of these. So this first question is, on our road, if you ask one provider if they offer internet, they tell you yes, but in reality, they have internet on one end of the road. On the other end of the road, another provider offers internet, yet we are unable to access either of these services. There is a gap on our road where there is no internet offered. Are you aware of problems like this? So again, short answer would be yes. And part of that again goes to a couple different things. On the data side of things, as I referenced earlier, we know that broadband data that is out there showing where coverage is and is not available is historically flawed. Senator Manchin referenced some of the efforts underway to make this data better at the federal level. But the reason that it is flawed is because it is reported at the census block level. And what has to happen is the providers self-report that data to the FCC, like I said, biannually. And if they serve one location within that census block, the whole block can be shaded as served per the FCC guidelines. And so it's even a little bit more broad than that, that it's not only is it served today, but it could be served. The exact language is basically like in a reasonable business period of time, which I think equates to about 20 business days or something. To that location, then again, that whole block can be covered as served. So that leads to data that is just incorrect. And then the actual on-the-ground experience on a road such as this one will not mirror what the data shows. So then when they look and see if they have coverage, it may show that they do, and in actuality, they do not. So this is a very known issue with data. Another issue can be this. So sometimes we'll get calls from folks who can say, I can physically see the lines running by my house, but I cannot get access to it. So there can be issues where networks potentially are there, but they're built out for other purposes. So for example, it could be what we call long haul fiber, which means that it's not intended at all for end user usage. And there are reasons it cannot be used for that, but you can physically see the infrastructure. And so that can be confusing in terms of why you can't get access to it. It can be built more for commercial purposes. And we went into some of this in the report and tonight when we're talking about middle mile, last mile. So from an education standpoint, it's important to understand that there are really layers to network build out. And it is that last mile network that needs to be present to provide that end user connectivity. But last mile cannot occur without middle mile. So you need all the layers of that network for that to happen. So sometimes while the business case can be there from a middle mile perspective, when you look at actually getting it to a home or a business, the return on investment may or may not have been there historically, and it can leave pockets such as what you describe. So yes, we are familiar with this. We see it in all the communities in which we work, and efforts such as this are those that are trying to really fill all of those gaps. Does anyone have anything to add on that? Okay. Next question. Last summer, a bill was passed in West Virginia to eliminate disadvantageous payroll taxes for outside employers that open up payroll in West Virginia. While this necessary step opens up the opportunity for remote workers to move here, West Virginia is not competitive enough with reliable internet. Are we speaking to other providers who provide a competitive edge? Is any comparative analysis being done? So also yes and yes. I'm going to work backwards actually. So a comparative analysis was done as part of the report. It'll be in the final assessment, looking at options that are currently available. And then we, throughout this process, have, as I've shared, had multiple meetings such as this one. I think this is our 5th. Maybe 6th. And providers were always welcome to participate, and we've had one-on-one conversations as well from those who have expressed interest in potentially expanding services in Mong County. So yes, part of this report will include a comparison of what's out there, and then also discussions for how that could be supplemented as well in the area. Anything to add to that? I really appreciate that so far I've been able to say yes to all these questions. It's always a little nerve-wracking. I'm going to really summarize this question just because it's a little hard to read the whole text. But basically the question here is, how can we ensure that reliable and fast internet is available to those regions where anyone chooses to engage in a remote working environment in West Virginia, really in the county. So how can we ensure that reliable and fast internet is available countywide? I think this is really the first step, is the study and the assessment that's been done over the last 9 months. So first and foremost, what you have to look at is what is already there. You can't figure out where the gaps are if you don't know where the service is. Someone I used to work for always said, you can't manage what you can't measure. So we have to measure it. We have to figure out where it is. We have to acknowledge the flaws in that data, do our best to supplement it, and then craft solutions to, again, fill those gaps. Now, I will say that we operate under the typical guise that there is not a silver bullet to solving broadband connectivity issues. If there was, it would already be in play. And oftentimes it is a patchwork of solutions, potentially different connectivity options, such as what Jessica talked about with a wireless and fiber connectivity approach, to address all the different pockets across the county. And we believe that the plan that we've put together will help identify that. Anything to add? Okay. Any other questions from folks in the room? Well, thank you all so much for your time. We will be here, so we're happy to speak with anyone individually. We also will be sending around the slides, as Eric said. We can share our contact information along with those as well if folks would like to contact us separately. But with that, did you want to close it out with anything? Or we? Oh, please take a bag on your way out. We were going to have a reception, but because of COVID, opted not to. So please take a bag on your way out and a notebook. And thank you all again for coming. Sorry. Yes.
No, for the folks that are here and the folks online, I did want to say, and Lindsay pointed this out, and I want to just make sure we emphasize this. Your leadership in this county has surprised this entire project team. Not because we didn't meet them and think they're wonderful folks and have doing a great job. That's true. But the amount of involvement and commitment and concern for what we're trying to do on behalf of the county here is overwhelmingly significant. And it is, and I'll get in trouble with our other clients for saying this, really, very frankly, is to a greater extent than we've seen anywhere else. And the outreach we've had with the community, with folks who have rights of way, with folks who are other providers in the community currently who are working to serve other customers, their involvement and engagement has been unreal. We have never, I don't think any of us have ever had a client circumstance where the concern and involvement and participation has been so great. You guys will and should know, selfishly, we say to each other all the time, wouldn't it be great if everywhere else was just like Mon County? So it really has been wonderful, and I'll say this, and then I'll get off my stump, as I say, but the reality is that I view, and I think the rest of the team views, broadband connectivity as the roads and the bridges and the canals of now. I used to say the future, but it's now. And your leadership here has really engaged in a way that we have yet to see other folks do in other areas of the country and other areas of even the state. And I think that this is the point of the spear. I think this is a leadership opportunity. And whether you know it or not, your county is in the forefront of what's happening, and you guys are doing a tremendous job taking the lead. So I do want to say that, and to the county commissioners, the team, and then support staff, and Fortney, who I've never seen anybody solve problems like this guy. So kudos to everybody. It's great, and but I wanted you to hear that from us, not because Sean was going to speak next, and I'm sucking up to Sean. That's not what's going on. The reality is we're very sincere about this. You guys are doing, great work, and we have been continually surprised and amazed, more amazed than surprised, because as we work on this project, we realize what talent you have here, and we realize what commitment you have here, and it's been tremendous. And so I think we all want to thank you for letting us play in this arena, because this has really been stellar. It's been fun. So with that, I'll get off.
No. What's that? Okay. Hey, Joe, do you have something you want to say? Delegate Sattler? Yeah.
Joe, you're on mute. Oh, there you go. No, you just muted again. You're on mute. Okay. You're good.
Hey, Joe?
Okay, I will tell you, I'm actually sitting in my truck down the parking lot and I wanted to continue to hear, but what I want to do is I want to echo the same things that they've said, Sean, about you and this project and your team there in Monongalia County. It is great to be down here to be able to share this kind of thing with the infrastructure and technology committee, that what's going on. It's just a shame that they couldn't see the maps that I was able to see coming up. And I will tell you, as far as the western part, if I get any say in it, I don't want wireless. I want them wires in the ground and on the poles, wherever you stick them, to get it out there to make it more permanent. I think that would be a great disservice to our people. I understand temporary, but I also know that temporary in the state of West Virginia means about 50 years, and I don't have that time left. So again, I just wanted to say to you, Sean, hats off to you. You are leading the state, and I just hope people realizes how much you're doing for the whole county, and especially the western end.
Well, thank you, Joe. In addition to being our delegate, Joe's a dear friend of mine, so I appreciate the comments. But I only wanted to get up and thank, the crew that we assembled to start down this RFP process. For one, my fellow commissioners, former Commissioner Hawkins, President Bloom, Commissioner Arnett, who delegated me to start down the path of trying to come up with a consultant. And we put together a team that worked tirelessly, and I think I couldn't be happier with the results. And I think that we're lucky to have the team that we've pulled together, and it was all just kind of circumstance how it all came together. But we talked at one time, everybody on the team had their degree signed by President Gee. We had people that went to Colorado. We had Ohio State representatives, and obviously we have West Virginia representatives. But this is a real, though we didn't know each other until last spring, I think we've really kind of been embedded in each other's offices and have really worked hard. But our citizens have made it so easy to do this, and the participation we've had from our citizens and the participation we've had from the different entities. Morgantown Area Partnership has basically loaned us Eric, and he's helped keep all the plates spinning. Mecca has loaned Mike Fortney. We have our planner, again, our IT department. Those are all the people. Our MMPO director, Delegate Statler, Ron Lytle. I mean, those are the people who have really made this work and really have made it easy. So we're not done yet. we got a long journey. We spent today was a microcosm of the whole project. We drove 179 miles today, taking Jessica to all corners of the county, and that was a good process because it's also gave us some additional ideas. But we've got a long way to go. If we just ask people to be patient, we are working. We will get there. We will show progress. I turn to our citizen advisor, Dave Shrewsbury, all the time, and as long as I can keep him patient, that we're going to finally sometime get somewhere. And he's been very patient, but he's my gauge. I gauge most of the citizens' patience for this, something actually happening by David. So it will take a while, but we are moving in the right direction. And again, we couldn't do it without everybody that's in this room and everybody that's participating online. So thank everybody. And if you have anything, please contact us. We'll sit down and talk, or we'll take your suggestions and run them by the team. And unless anybody else, Tom, do you have anything? Tom's never been one to be short of words. Thank you, Tom.
No, on behalf of the county, we want to thank you for what you're doing, and I can't say enough for what Sean. We put Sean in charge of this, and he has really done. I wouldn't even call it an admirable job, an amazing job. But I do want to say this, and this is something I'd like to say to you all and to the county residents. People think, and we hear all the time, there's $1 billion, there's $1 million coming to the county, and then the problem's resolved. What they don't realize is we have to do the hard work and get it done. And that seems to be the confusion. So as much as I'm real excited, I also want to be very upfront and honest in saying, come February, we're not suddenly going to have broadband. Everyone thinks that, and we're just going to have all this money. But what I'd like to recommend, and what we can do then, is say, that will be the stepping stone so we can go back to the state of West Virginia and Joe and say, okay, we want to be the pilot project. You give us the funds so we can show you how to do it correctly. And that's what I can't say enough about what Sean, and everyone's talking about doing right now. So that's what I want to say is this is step one in February. Then we're going to start showing the public how we're going to be able to say basically infrastructure is now, broadband is the new infrastructure. We have to have it, and we're going to get there, and we're going to ask the state to work with us. And that's what I wanted to say, that we're going to all do it together. And I can't say enough about what Sean and Hap and Eric have done in IT. So again, on behalf of the county, we want to thank you, and we're looking forward. I feel like the football coach, can't wait till February. As long as you're not Buffalo, we're okay.
Well, thanks everybody. We'll conclude this meeting.